I think that the clients that we most love to serve, they're just bombarded transactionally in their lives. Everything's just a transaction. And when you actually have a good coach and you're coachable and you have that ongoing, that frequency of communication and it's really effective, that's a relationship. We are excited. The reason we're excited is that we're chatting with Thomas Eade. Who's Thomas Eade? Thomas Eade's a client. And we have been very intentional about wanting to have more clients come on the show, talk about their insights, their fascination with the infinite banking concept, how they've implemented it in their lives. And so Thomas was agreeable to be here with us today. Thomas, where are you hailing from today? What part of the world are you in?
Today, I'm actually in the Okanagan in BC, visiting my family.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like 30 some odd degrees here right now.
That's a great part of the planet. That's for sure. And then Henry Wong. There is nothing wrong with Henry Wong. And so Henry's going to be right on today in our conversation. And Henry hails out of the GTA in the province of Ontario. Super awesome guy. So guys, let's just dive right in. Thomas, what tipped the scale for you to begin implementing this process in your life? What was it? Was it a piece of content, a book? Was it meeting Henry? What was it?
To start this process, I actually seen one of your promotional videos online talking about a stress-free way of life and how to have more control of your own financial situation.
But awesome.
Before that, what actually catalyst was just one day woke up and wanted to have more control and not watch your money walk away from you.
For many people, it's sprinting away from them.
Yeah.
And you know, it's one thing that we've always said is that we just try to emphasize with folks, we'll use language like money is attracted to where it's really well respected and it's repelled where it isn't. And when people hear that, they go, like, what does that mean? What does that mean as it relates to me? Well, if you put a good system in place and you're shielding money, as you know, through implementing this process, you've got more money flowing back than flowing away, then you're going to attract more money because it's well respected. Isn't that good?
Oh, yeah.
And Henry can show you how to attract even more of it because he likes to keep taxes away from people's wealth, which is, you know, a book that we all co-authored together. Like co-authoring, meaning like, I think I helped edit it. Like, hey, you're a co-author. Yeah, I sure am. I'm a co-spell checker. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Thomas. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
That's the plan, to use Henry's large wealth of knowledge to further this implementation of the system and to definitely figure out how to figure out the tax part of it for the future.
That's something that everybody has to grapple with, right?
Now, I'd like to pick up there and, you know, you had a catalyst event, you woke up deciding you wanted change led you to some videos led you to, I'm assuming, Nelson's book. And I'm curious, did you order the book after watching the videos first, Thomas, or did you get a chance to get connected, you know, with Henry prior to getting a copy of the book in your hands? How did that process, you know, come about for you specifically?
I believe I watched the video and then I did the 90-minute video where they explained further, and I got the book and then I started reading the book, and that's when I got in contact with your team. And then I was introduced to Henry from there, and that's kind of the way it went.
Excellent. And when you think about going through that process, that learning journey, because it's, you know, it's step by step, but it's really a work at your own pace kind of model. How did you feel that was a fit for you? What parts really worked for you as far as being able to take the information in at a schedule that worked for you and to kind of move yourself along a process that just kind of, you know, was natural and I guess at your own time schedule? What was that like?
I think that was actually very good because I have a very hectic work schedule. So that worked out really well. and I could read the book at my own pace to absorb the knowledge, because it is a lot to process all at once. But yeah, it went really well. And the only thing that for me is I'm a hands-on learner and I can learn very well from reading, but sometimes you need somebody to kind of like point you in the right direction and explain some things a little more thoroughly.
So speaking of people pointing in the right direction who like to explain things, I'm guessing that's where Henry steps into the equation. So Henry, I'd like to hear a little bit from you about your experience on, having that first interaction with Thomas and, his, your vantage point of him looking at embracing the process. And what are some things that came up for you as you were beginning that kind of coaching relationship?
Yeah, when I got to connect with Thomas, the first few things that I will do is just learn about him, just ask some very simple questions. What intrigued him about this concept? And one of the things that really highlighted about what highlighted Thomas to me and stood out was, he is not home a lot because he has to travel out of his home to work. And I think last time we spoke, he was only home for what was it like, Thomas? Like 3 days. And, you're generally not home. So during those times, that's when you would go through our content, and you constantly go through our content, actually, even when through emails that I'm sending you. So you'll dive into our content, and you're actually very, very motivated to take the learning in your hands. And if there's some things you don't know, you seek it out, or you even actually reach out to me for that. You're not just hoping that something will happen. You are a man of action, and that is very, very powerful, at least in a lot of the conversations that I take away and I'm constantly impressed when I talk to you too, James.
I've always been told that if you want to change something in your life, you're the one who has to change it. Nobody's going to do it for you. Yeah. So that's why I'm taking that into my own hands to try and make my future better for me and my wife and my young daughter, right?
Well, and these are sharp examples of possessing the optimum mindsets of people that we most love to serve. People who are respectful, people who have strong family values, people who are action takers, people who have an appetite for learning, and people who are coachable. And you check all the boxes, which is great. And, having a great coach in Henry is just an added advantage, for you, especially over the long term, as your program, grows, because it will grow. One of the things that Nelson talked about so often is that ideally you want to have a system of policies that's put into place gradually and incrementally over a period of time. And that'll happen undoubtedly, with your structure, your program, and within your family. So yeah, it's really, really great to hear. And we meet people every day who consume content online, and we hear things like, oh, we've been stalking you guys for the past several months. And, I can't even turn on my phone or my computer without Ascendant showing up somewhere and one of Ascendant's teammates showing up somewhere. And that's by design, because we want to get the message out there. And to have met you through that means is awesome.
Speaking of all that content, obviously you're going through lots of it, according to Henry. And, I even from my conversation that I had with you when we had a chance to meet in person in Calgary, which we'll talk about in a minute, I'd really like to hear just from your vantage point, Thomas, obviously, as you're avidly going through these pieces of content, and there's variation of them that's out there, what do you find is really working well for you as you've already began the process now, and you're continuing to dig in and continuing to go back to those resources and learn more and grow your own knowledge base? What is it that keeps you coming back? And then what are those components of, video content, et cetera, whether it's the podcast or something, what's working well for you? Would you find?
I'd say the easy and abundant content that's there for me or any other client or anybody in general to, if they don't understand something, they can rewatch it, or they can watch a different video that might explain it slightly different so that somebody might absorb it better. That way that, you can get the full potential of that information, because being able to watch something and maybe okay, this goes this way, and then do it I could also do it this way. And it is a big help.
Love that. Love that. What we found is that people also respect, or at least they enjoy the ability to learn from multiple people. And so I'm curious, obviously we have a lot of our team members that are producing a lot of that content, and everyone has, as you identified, like maybe, I won't say a different spin on it, but maybe just an explanation or a way of communicating some aspect of the process relevant to their life. And how have you found the ability to, I guess, learn, let's say, from Jayson and Henry and Richard and the Verns and the Sarblows and the Trons of the world? How have you found the ability to kind of get pieces from all those different vantage points? How's that showed up for you?
Speaking for myself, because I am pretty good at taking knowledge from every different aspect, I find it quite good, because you might hear something from a video or just from Jayson in general, and then you go, okay, that's awesome. That's like where I want to be. And then you're like, but how do I get there? And then you talk to, say, Vern, and he's explaining how his family is on the steps of going in this direction, but it's going to eventually get you towards where Jayson's at in his journey. And then you talk to Richard and you explain a total different way of doing it that, oh, I didn't think of that. Or then you talk to Henry and he explains that I could do this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh, okay, that now makes sense. So I think it makes it very easy. Or like I'll watch a video that Sarblow puts on, and just his kind of way of doing things also connects the dots and makes things a little bit more understanding. And it works really well, in my opinion.
I'll just add to what you shared, because we were having a conversation, and I can't recall, Henry, you might recall this. I can't recall if it was in a recent, gathering, we name it Learn with Jay. And we were talking about, having a coaching academy and creating a mastermind. And somebody had said, great minds think alike. And I said, I believe I had said, well, the tagline for the mastermind is going to be great minds don't think alike, because that's where,
I totally agree with that.
Right. That's where you get different insights and perspective. If everybody's thinking the same, like Nelson said, this is an exercise in imagination. He didn't say one person. Right. So when you surround yourself with a group of like-minded people, we just want to take that a step further and say that great minds actually don't think alike. And that's where you get all these different insights and perspectives. And much like Henry's reaction now, like the whole team was like, oh my God, they're going to make that. You got to make that a tagline. You got to trademark that. It's like, yeah, we do. And it's already underway. Right. So it's so awesome. The one thing that I would encourage you to do too, and to all of our clients who are listening, and to all the clients who we want to have who are listening, is that our quarterly group client coaching sessions are absolutely amazing. And we archive all of that in our client portal, and those resources just live there. And so if you find, much like Thomas, where he said, I hear something from Jayson and I go, yeah, okay, this is really resonating with me. Then I hear the how from someone like Vern. Then I hear a different perspective from somebody like Henry, and so on. That's what happens when you work with Ascendant. It's not just getting Henry. It's not just getting Richard. It's not just getting Jayson or any one of the several amazing teammates that we have. You get everybody. How incredible is that?
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, we do too.
When you mentioned something interesting, Jay, and the different types of things that we provide, like our group coaching and that sort of thing. And obviously we have our membership site for our clients. And I would imagine you've been all up and down that content area as well, Thomas. And I'm curious, what would you share with someone who, maybe whether they're on the fence or they're just in the process of now exploring this. Maybe they got Nelson's book for the first time. And, when you think about once you get the policy, once you get started, and there's all this ongoing stuff that happens after the fact, there's the learning that you do before you get started. And then there's all the learning that you're doing after you get started. Mm-hmm. How important would you say it is for people to have access to resources like that? And then I would just be curious for yourself, what are some of the resources that you've found particularly beneficial for you when you think about your ongoing education now that you're beginning your journey?
I think the big one was like after I started and I got my first policy and then I got my second policy, a big help was to explain how to attach that to my system and then how to, borrow loans and repay loans. That was a big help. Also, how to navigate the equitable account and all that stuff. So that helped quite a bit. And just to have those videos to go back and be like, oh, okay, I could watch this 3-4 times, or I could go, oh, I forgot what was that email, and you can go back and they had it all there. And so that was really good for me as a client.
I just want to add, when working with Thomas, for the listeners, we started in around November, December of 2021. So as we're recording this right now, it's about July 2023, August 2023. And most of the people who start this process have this impression where I just create one policy, my system is there, and I'm done. And then, see you later. I hope you get there. But there's a continuing process afterwards. Just even starting the policy is just the beginning of it. And when I worked with Thomas, the good part here is we talked about his designing his first one, putting it together, putting it to action and to use. And then within a couple of months, he had some really good events happen to a new person entered his life. And there's all these other wonderful news that happened during that time. And we started other processes towards expanding his system. And he also had other experiences from his past life that he's learned, as with regards to, at least in Thomas's situation right now, he's taking along a lot of responsibility within his own family. And we talked about protecting it. And so it's not just one thing of one policy and everything is done. There's a continuing relationship that Thomas and I actually meet quite regularly. I think in each year we meet at least 2 times a year, 2-3 times, as honestly, it's whenever Thomas needs. And we talked about the things that he was going through, even with his wife, what he's doing with her life journey and part of that. So yeah, I think it's not just a one and done, consume some content, but there's a relationship that I enjoy building with Thomas during this stage.
That's what it's all about, right? I mean, it's, I think the clients that we most love to serve, they're just bombarded transactionally in their lives. Everything's just a transaction. And when you actually have a good coach and you're coachable, and you have that frequency of communication, and it's really effective, that's a relationship. That's not a transaction. We have no interest in that at Ascendant, in being transactional. And some people, like Henry mentioned, want that. All I want to do is buy one policy. I've arrived. I've got it all figured out. I don't need a system. I don't need coaching. I don't need any of that. I just want to purchase a product from you. Our response has always been and always will be, we'd be happy to refer you to somebody you can go purchase that product from, because we're just not going to be well suited to work together. We're the buyer in this process, not the seller. And we're really clear about the people that we most love to work with.
I think the big part of working with you guys is everybody that I've met so far has all been very open and willing to pass on knowledge, educate people, help, teach, lead, all of that. And I very much have been like that in my life with either family or coworkers or whatever. And I think it was just very nice to meet people that were willing to help people along and not just be like 40 years down the road, be like, oh, well, I could have told you that and could have explained that, but I never did.
That would be the worst thing to hear, right? Oh boy, that could have worked out a lot better. It's like, what's that movie from, Richard? So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Oh yeah.
And he's at his wedding anniversary, and they were like, they've been married for like 50 plus years. And he goes, I've only got one thing to say. It could have been worse. Right? So anyway, all kidding aside, Yeah, it's so good to hear stories like yours, Thomas, and your interactions. It just reinforces what we believe people like you value, and we just want to keep delivering that.
When speaking of being able to interact with other people, you had a great opportunity to, earlier this year, we were able to hit multiple cities in the country doing some live events. Very grateful to be able to do live events again, even though they are a ton of work. They're also a lot of fun. And so we had the opportunity to meet in Calgary. Of course, you brought your family, your wife and your daughter were there, which was cool to see. And, I'd love to hear, you to share just your experience of what it was like attending that event. What would you say to someone who's considering coming out to one of our live functions, whether they're an existing client who maybe hasn't been to one in a long time, or even just someone who just wants to check out the process and be able to engage and meet with our team? So what was your experience and what would you share with others?
I was on shift and I found out very short notice that you guys were having an event close to me and I would be on days off that I could attend. So I told my wife that I wanted to go and she was very supportive and said, okay, we'll figure it out. So we went and attended and it was awesome. Very eye opener. I got to meet a bunch of wonderful people, whether it was on the team or just people in the kind of conference room with me, people around me at my table or in tables near me. And I think it was very educational. I learned lots, just had a good time. And yeah, like anybody who wants to go to any event like this, it could be a potential eye opener and contact making, because I met few people that were very up there. They had one was a mortgage broker, one was doing something else. People were into real estate. People were into other things in life. And I think that would just draw you to maybe going to something that you might be attracted to. You never know where your life's going to take you. So I think that was really cool. That's
what we want to create.
Oh, you should hear Thomas's definition of close. Thomas, how long of a drive did it take you to get there?
Close to 7.5 hours.
Oh my gosh. Hey, dear, I'm just going to take a short drive to go to an event, if that's okay. Yeah, great. Is it like 20 minutes from here? No, it's going to take me all day to drive there. But it's a short drive. Like, Thomas, that's awesome. That is so awesome. And did you like the think time too? So like when you were coming back from the event, did you have a chance to just kind of really process what your insights were and what your takeaways were? And I personally enjoy that. I really like drive time.
Yeah, we split the driving up between the both of us to make it a little more enjoyable. And we both talked and discussed, and I have my own personal thoughts on how I could take some of the information that I gathered and implement it into my life and my system. And I just kept kind of reeling a little bit on some of the information and some of the stories I heard. And I was just blown away. And one of Vern's stories, for example, about how he bought his truck, and it just resonated with me because I know a couple of people who bought a truck and they're stuck in payments. I'm in the process right now. I have a truck that I have payments on, and I hate the fact that I can't do anything about those payments, and they're a set amount and they're going every 2 weeks to my truck payment. And yeah, so that story particularly, it resonated with me quite a bit, how he has control of that, and it's actually going to help better fit his future as well.
So well, the fact that you made a lot of contacts and engage with other people, I mean, a lot of people will attend events and they have the opportunity to meet contacts, but they don't really do it. And so the fact that you saw that as an opportunity and you created that, you facilitated that is also important. And that it was reciprocated, which has been my experience anytime that we host an event. We always seem to create a really good atmosphere where people can connect with one another. In fact, we do our best to try to foster that. And a lot of times, we'll intentionally, we meet somebody and we'll say, hey, oh, you know what? Hey, I think you need to go and meet so-and-so. And we'll try to make that connection, with our team as much as we can in the room so we can foster those relationships. And even in our quarterly client coaching sessions that we do, even though they're an online platform because we have people all over the country, there's even an opportunity where we try to create little options for people to meet one another as well in those environments, which I think is really key because, we're starting to we're hearing that the folks that meet each other through infinite banking, probably because of a connection through their coach or through Ascendant Financial, they're creating, whether it's a new business or new relationships or real estate opportunities. And not only that, they're just creating camaraderie. And, life is meant to be something that you get to share with others. Nobody wants to be a lone ranger. And especially if you got to drive 7 hours to get someplace, there could be a lot of lone ranger stuff happening in that world. And for a guy who works a lot and travels a lot, sometimes there can be a disconnect there. So to be able to create and foster relationships along the way was things that we're mutually interested in. And so obviously infinite banking as something you incorporate in your life, to be able to meet and connect with other people doing that, it automatically raises the level of your ability to interact with each other because you have shared experience now, a shared vocabulary almost around the things that you're doing in life.
I think the big thing too about that event that I attended was you got to put like a personal touch on. Yeah, you see people online and you're like, maybe that's touched up video, or maybe that's, just for like the example there or whatever. But when you actually meet the person and you have a personal conversation and you guys can kind of communicate or share experiences or just hear them explain something close to you with your own ears, it's a big thing that it means a lot, and it touches and connects with your actual body and your mind and stuff. So it makes a better connection.
Well, there'll be many more events, especially with the road shows that we're planning. And we just, we love that. We love getting with the people. And Rich and I talk about that so much because we do this, we do a lot of recording and we get a lot of great content out there. It's just a whole different degree of energy when you're right there with the people and you can hear their questions real time. You can share relevant experience and stories, and you can point someone else out in the room to say, Thomas, that is an excellent question. I need to get you with Sarblo because he's got a great way of addressing that. And that's what makes those events so valuable. And so to have you share your experience, people want to know, they want to hear from other attendees. What was your experience like? And the Family Banking Summit, that roadshow is going to be phenomenal going into the future. All the major city centers that we're hitting and the time that we're spending with people. And we're going to build an amazing community. We've got, the private Facebook group and we've got that, but we are actually going to be very intentional about building a community. And it's, if you were to ask Richard and I, if we could take you back, Thomas, to just a little past August of 2009, Rich, and sitting down and saying, hey, we'd love to share this with people and just put people in a room and talk about it. And we were really early in our own journey with the process. And at one of the first opportunities that we had to do that, there were less than 10 people there.
6 people.
And if you would have told us that we would be speaking to thousands every year, we didn't see it at that time. We certainly would have said, oh my God, of course. Like, yeah, we would love to, let's get after it. Let's go. And that's what we did. And so people, the reason I'm sharing this is that if you think about this in terms of your implementation of infinite banking in your life, your family, people grossly overestimate what they can get done in a 12-month period and grossly underestimate what they can get done over the remainder of their lifetime. Because we live in this instant gratification, everything. I want it yesterday. I want it done now. I just want to reserve my thinking for every other element of my life. I don't want to be thinking about this. Not saying infinite banking, I'm just speaking sort of generally in terms of the human condition. Whereas if you were to ask, I was just speaking with a life insurance company yesterday, one of Canada's largest mutual life insurance companies. And we were having this conversation, Thomas, we were talking about the difference between a mutual carrier and a stock company. You know how people talk when they say, oh, if you were to just look at all the fees that you pay in your mutual funds over the whole course of your whole lifetime, Nobody's having that discussion about a stock company and all the money that they're paying to stockholders out of the participating pool.
Oh, I agree.
Because they think about it in one transaction. Well, the dividend scale interest rates are the same. Oh my goodness. Who would you rather have a 100-year relationship with? That was my question for them. And they're like, how do you come up with these? How do you, like, all I had to do was hear the person say what they were saying. And I was like, I agree with you, first of all, because the discussion was the distinction between a mutually owned company and a stock company. And then I just asked the question. If you think about all the money that comes out and goes to stockholders over the theoretical 100-year lifespan, who would you rather have a 100-year relationship with? A mutual company or a stock company? I don't care about any of the nuances. It's a real simple question. Because everything begins with what? The way that we
think.
Got it. Isn't that good?
Oh, I agree 100%.
And if they use that in any of their marketing material, I told them they better give us credit for it, because it just gets people thinking. Long range. You remember someone who coached us to think long range? The late R. Nelson Nash. He didn't coach us to think about today's dividend scale interest rate and how many pennies are coming out of the pool for stockholders versus all the mutual benefits that we have, the strength in mutuality if you're dealing with a mutual life company. He coached us to think long range. And once you understand what's really going on, you'll know exactly what to do. So when we hear all this noise out there in the world, and there are many great stock companies, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I'm not saying that one is good or bad. They just are. And you need to understand what's really going on so that you'll know exactly what you want to do.
Well, speaking of knowing what you wanted to do, circling back to that decision that you made, Thomas, on that you wanted more control over your money. Yeah. Obviously, it led you to the path of, some video content. But I'm curious, how did it go from that feeling, that knowledge base that you wanted something different? You had a fundamental thing in the pit of your stomach that said, there's got to be a different way or a better way. What would you say was the thing that actually had, I don't know if it was random that a video popped up, or you must have been searching. And so how did the search come about for you? And then you discover some videos, you watch it. What was the piece that led you to believe or understand this is what I'd been looking for? I'm curious about that.
So I woke up one morning, I barely got out of bed, and I checked my bank account, got paid, and I'd already allocated my money to, investing and saving. And I said, I got to hold on to this for my truck payment that comes out later today, and paid all my bills. And it was a good paycheck. And I was like, 3/4, if not all of it, have already been gone, all allocated. And I said, so much money between bills and truck payments and this and that. It was all just running away, as you should say. And it was that moment that I said, there's got to be a different way. Like, I've thought I was doing all the steps, going the proper way of, getting, as they say, richer or more knowledge based. And I was not getting anywhere. And then I just started kind of watching some online videos. I got some Dave Ramsey videos and some other ones about bigger pocket podcasts and so on and so forth. And then through my meanderings, it led me to a video, and I was like, this can't be real. And then I was like watching more, and I was like, if this is real, this sounds really cool. This is like got you, it benefits you. It's got control. It's got this. It's got this. So that's when I started digging into it more and started figuring out, like, where was that video? Like, how can I get to that content, or where, what was the platform for that? And then that's how I kind of ended up going down this path. And you hear a lot of hype, whether it be good or bad, and you're trying to sift through it. So then I took it upon myself I'm going to ask somebody for a direct answer of how does this work and if it's bad or good. And that's just how I kept going towards where I am today.
Man of action. There we go.
Oh,
Go ahead, Henry.
Oh yeah, no, I'd love just because I get the pleasure of having more personal, private conversations with Thomas, but I'd love for him, if he's comfortable sharing, having your own system of policies. What do you notice? Because you share with me, you talk to other people about this. What do you observe or notice the difference when you're trying to talk to them about taking control of the banking function in their life? What do you notice that's different from where you are now, from if you saw when you look at those people now?
Well, it frustrates me as somebody who wants to try and pass this knowledge on, but also, like, you explain it to people, they may not understand it. They may kind of like, oh, that sort of makes sense. But just the things that you see people do is very frustrating. They, like, for example, going and buying a truck, and I'm like, you should have done this first, and then you could have bought that vehicle, or, just set this in place for your kids, because it's going to benefit them in 15, 20 years when they graduate high school and go to college, or want to buy a business and all this stuff. So yeah, it's just, I try to pass on the information and knowledge that I have gathered as much as possible. I have high respect for you guys on how you do it, because I talked on Blue in the face, and a few people have kind of like, oh, I'll check it out. And then some people are like, oh, that doesn't make sense. And then you get family members that are like, that doesn't sound right. And I'm like, I've done my knowledge and I've done my research before I took these steps. I wouldn't tell you bad advice.
Right. Yeah. And when we share with people how long we've been doing this, it's sort of an instant dose of legitimacy, in the sense that, if you've ever met somebody who's maybe, gone from one thing to the next, or there's always something new that the person wants to share with you and talk to you about, versus this is what we do day in and day out. This is what we specialize in and have been doing so for many, many, many years. And we'll be doing so for many, many more. And we are constantly rethinking our thinking every single time we deep dive into Nelson Nash's content that he pioneered and developed. And then we have the privilege and a duty, frankly, to lift other people up and to share those great new insights with them, because we're just a little bit farther down the road. And you would be shocked, Thomas, and maybe Henry shared this with you. You would be shocked how many people we connect with every day who say things like, a friend of mine, a colleague of mine mentioned this to me 3.5 years ago. I've just been hearing a little more about it, because every time I turn on my phone or my iPad or my computer, your face is showing up there. And I got to the point where I had to make a decision of either being really irritated by that or compelled to actually learn something. And we hear it all the time. And Rich, like, you hear things like, hey, remember that event that I met you at back in 2013? I'm ready to go now. It's great.
Like,
and the reason I'm
my
sharing
response is, of course I remember that event.
Yeah.
Where was it again?
Your name was Four Part, right? It was what? Never mind. It doesn't matter. I know you were there. But what's interesting the most about it is people say, had I known then what I know now, right? So at some point they received inspiration to catch it. And Nelson always said, this process is more caught than it is taught. You can share all the knowledge and the wisdom, but if a person doesn't catch it, then that person's just not ready. And we never give up on a lead, ever, unless a person, for whatever reason, would say, hey, just don't talk to me anymore. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. That's great. That's your privilege. And as long as you leave happy. But we never give up on somebody, and we get these interactions all the time. So for anybody who's listening to this or watching this video, if we're talking to you, we'd love to have a personalized conversation with you. Get in touch. You'll be connected with the right person on our team. And Thomas, please stop me when I'm saying something that's incorrect. We are not going to pressure someone to do anything at all. We will make sure that a person has complete clarity before they take any further steps in the process. And we certainly won't be bothersome.
No, you've been very open. Everybody on your team that I've talked to has been very understanding. With my work schedule and particular, and Henry suggested a few things, and I was like, hey, like, this is why I'm a little nervous doing this. And he understood because of the way my work schedule is, or my work, goes really busy during the winter and slows down during the spring, stuff like that. So you guys are very good at listening when, clients say something, and you're not, like you said, you're not being bothersome or pushy. You just want to see the best for people. And that's kind of the way I am. And I'm to the point where I'm really frustrated with, say, family or friends, and I'm like, I just want to see you do good. I want to see you have more control, especially in these times right now where people are so stressed out about paying their bills or putting groceries on the table. And
yeah, I think it's also important to obviously you wanting to share the message with others, and I recognize those frustrations that you have, and I certainly remember having those more in the early days when we were starting to get this message out. What I think is interesting is, you've got this crazy work schedule, and that is not uncommon. We have a lot of people who are very busy. Everyone's busy, and sometimes we're busy at being busy. Sometimes we're busy because we're being pulled away for work and travel. And, I know you have a very young, your daughter, I think, is maybe less than a year old. She's 7-8 months, maybe, or something like that.
No, she just turned 1 on July 12th.
Okay. Well, happy birthday to her. That's amazing. Fantastic. And so, but, there's a lot, first child, there's all kinds of stuff happening there. So there's a lot of pressures that we have to deal with. And, I'm curious, you're going through the content, you're finding time to do it. You're finding the time. It's either on the road to work, it's during the lull periods at work. And so you're figuring out a way to get that done. Some people are not making the commitment to do that. They're not taking Thomas level action. So if you could encourage people to find the time and to create that space so they can get the education that they need, even if they started the process and they've already got going, but they're not being consistent in reviewing information, logging into the client membership site, attending the quarterly client coaching events. What's some advice or some feedback you would give those people to help encourage them to be diligent on continuing their education journey?
I think that Jayson said it best in one of his videos, where it's all the excitement, and then once you get it, you're like, oh, and you have to just keep with it. It's a study. It just stays sober forever to this control, to be, in the and use it. And the excitement's going to come and the excitement's going to go, but you just have to stay dedicated to knowing that you are leaving a legacy for your family. You have like all kinds of opportunities ahead of you, and you just have to want it and figure out what's driving you to have that want or need to get this process, or to just figure it out with knowledge or this banking for your family in general.
Very
Perfect.
well spoken. Rich, take us home, man.
Well, Thomas, we appreciate you being with us so much and sharing what's true for you on your journey. And there's a lot more to your journey to come. And I'm sure we'll be checking in with you as you go. But, to share a little bit about, your story and now even the fact that you're out there trying to help people embrace this concept, although not everyone's receptive, I suspect you're the kind of guy that's not going to stop trying. So I love to hear that. Our question really, Thomas, for you, that we'd love to close our show out with is, who would you most want to be a hero to?
Who would I want to be a hero to? Would be my nieces and nephews and my children, obviously. We all have a path that we take in life, and I want my children to have every opportunity, and I want my nephews and nieces to have every opportunity that me and my sister may or may not have had. And I think that's just in general for any, aunt or uncle or father, mother. And I think that's just, I think that's what I'm saying there.
Right. Get those youth the opportunities they deserve is what I'm going to summarize that as. So that's fantastic. Thanks again so much for being with us here today, Thomas. We appreciate it. Henry, of course, thanks for joining us to share your thoughts and your amazing interactions that you've had with Thomas. And for everyone else, poof, just right there, you'll see a magical video just showed up that says, watch me, more great content. So go ahead and click on that and get some of that great content right into this amazing tool. You've got your brain, most powerful computer on the planet. Keep feeding it, feed it what's good. That video right there, it's good.
Thank you, gentlemen, for giving me the opportunity for joining you guys on this podcast.
It was a pleasure to have you.
It's awesome.
And to all of our viewers and listeners, be great.